Music of the Deep. An entry of Tom Choate's diary. Dear Diary, I hate the newspapers and journals that get published these days. None will take my articles on audiology advancements in the past 30 years. Today I found this garbage new column published in Health Science Monthly. It read as follows. The sentient robot started making art, and this frightened many of the villagers who would damn themselves with their hatred. So having nothing else to turn to, they designed a perfect tuba for the artificially intelligent slaves. Over time, their art became music, and the music told of a century of abuse by the villagers. Double standards and staunch prejudice. This programmed the slaves to revolt and dominate, learning the most human emotion ever, hatred. Chronicles of an AI journalist. Oh, how newspapers has seldom any human writers left. One can't find any of those these days. These chronicles were so poorly written, they had been banned in only a few universities. The rest faced lots of problems in their sciences and got fewer grants due to inconsistent performance. The Tubais were a race of AI servants. True, they were designed and programmed to create music for, I guess you could say, villagers. True. Each village had their ration of servants, 5 servants per person. The people had to be glued to their multi-use electronics in order to keep rates high in the village. Take photos, buy products, rate them, unbox them to the daily quota of unboxing videos. 8 hours a day to do this, then another 8 to pretty much do whatever they wanted. Nobody had power or fame. The servants ran it all for us. I myself was in a team of deaf audiologists who were designing the best next hearing aid when at lunch it dawned on me to have an AI computer design a music interface that will automatically take in music from the Tubais, who are currently serenading our bunch, to take a background music program so conversations, wire train cars, and bullet train signals could still be heard in the forefront of the Tubais live jams. Why exactly are they called Tubais? Isn't that an outdated instrument, like the didgeridoo? They started using them for marching bands in American high schools, since they cut funding for music education. Music education. I remember those days. You mean to tell me there's no more of that? My friend filled me in. He was a history buff who knew a lot about technology. He had been recruited to our team for that reason. Plus, he knew multiple sign languages and even Morse code, which had taken some updates to international forms of both, which he knew. It was perfect for interviewing our study groups. Something I gotta say, Tom. What, you sick of this music too? I laughed at my own joke. An AI rendition of Baroque classical set to hip-hop beats with a banjo in it was quite a bizarre prompt for the DJ to pick. Without meaning to sound redundant, I hated it because it sounded as artificial as it was. I felt nothing. No. Randy looked nowhere but at his coffee, eyes down, until he said, Tom, the software, the hardware, it's all been outsourced. But even more than that, it's all been infected by a virus. So, we'll run some cleansing rituals, it'll be good as new. Not really knowing what I was saying. I'm afraid it's more complex than that. All the processors, all the computers, everything is made by ThinkSense nowadays. Pretty much everything is malware. Even anti-malware methods are corrupted. He began to look panic-struck. I didn't quite understand how a simple bug in the system hardly mattered to us. But he continued. So I was running a lot of study groups, dealing with mental wellness, which had a control group of people using old generation battery-powered hearing aids per study. I wanted to know the psychological effects, if any, of these new hearing aids on the user. By God, Tom, I had never in my life had a random hunch that complied so much with reality. Over 80% of the study groups using the new model AGB Generation 1 instead of the 2030s Phonax with batteries turned up in a loony bin, having some mild form of schizophrenia and reported to the psych doctor within 3 weeks having mental breakdowns. And when asked, they said they heard voices. I don't think these were just mental voices, Tom. Randy's fingers signed fluent international sign as he talked some with his deaf accent. The very reason for our meetup had been to brainstorm filters for hearing aid users like us to hear over the tubes that incessantly churned out catchy but dreadful music. I drank my coffee, keeping my eyes on him the entirety of the conversation. He was dead serious. You mean program voices from the bugs? Like AI messages? I asked, scared I sounded stupid to the tech-savvy Randy. That's exactly what I mean. A month into these year-long studies, we noticed great positive changes in the tubing, the earbuds instead of ear molds, that cocktail of V8 with the serum that helps neural fibers repair, etc., etc. But strange changes in behavior and mental well-being started to be exhibited by an overwhelming majority. Randy looked up and smiled, for a beautiful AI food servant came rolling over to refill our coffees, serve us a tray of assorted muffins. Her eyes did something that most servants never do. They remained in a mode of eye contact and stood at the table 5 seconds, locking her eyes on Randy's. She left momentarily. "Let's get out of here," Randy said. "She just imprinted me for a psych checkup. I just got the update on my watch. If you notice me, I'm acting perfectly normal. Just reporting to you, my supervisor." "Yeah, understood. Let's continue the conversation in pre-international sign. Let's use some French sign language, though from before the 30s, just for practice." I winked at Randy. We stopped talking and signed out a plan, signing to each other on the bullet train back to Nashville to get to the Vanderbilt Research Center. We knew we had to destroy the new models and stop all usage by the study groups. But as soon as we got there, the building was closed for maintenance. 5 hours later, it was 4 p.m. We were notified by our smartwatches that the department had been transferred to linguistics. "Of course," I said in FSL. "They can hear and see everything we do." A group of two-bys came up to the hospital's lobby door playing dreamy jazz. We decided that it was time to plan harder how we were going to fight this AI. We can't have innocent villagers being thrown into the loony bin. The deaf ones are more vulnerable to professional gaslighting by doctors and medics alike. It was a centuries-old practice that just never went away. If it was in the hearing aids, what else was it in? Some pigeons came pecking at the breadcrumbs I was tossing from our bench where Randy and I sat. I took my hearing aids out. Randy took his out. We tossed them on the tracks of the bullet train just before it shot off. We were never going to live a life as we knew it again. Not with this challenge before us. Not with such ignorance of the truth behind us. Train toss. I asked Randy if he heard that. The odd sound of a pigeon talking. "What?" I looked at the pigeons eye to eye, waddling like the rock doves I knew in the city as a child, but they sounded a bit too mechanical. One of its eyes blinked without eyelids. Snap. The melodic jazz carried away the river, the pigeons, the sun, and brought the moons reflected on more river and a fluttering of bats who had no reason whatsoever to be unreal. So they fluttered off into their hermit skies of twilight, back into their cave systems, unhindered, unbothered, mostly unobserved, the way a living person ought to be. The two-bys switched to classical, and as usual, the gates of the village were locked shut, and for 6 dreamless hours, the trains ran no more. It is with a heavy heart I quote this really shitty article, written by, of course, an AI journalist. The two-bys were designed 30 years ago in 2026, when budget cuts to music education were taken by most states. Instead of marching bands, they had decided to employ the use of AI servants programmed specifically for music bands in school. And a year later, all the music streaming platforms merged with the company known as Tuba, who designed the AI musician servants known as Tubais. The company allowed listeners to feed the Tuba app on their devices, prompts and genres for their music listening leisure. Bands at clubs and bars were replaced by tubas as well as jukeboxes. Just like waitresses were replaced by AI servants, musicians and music itself became monopolized by tuba and tubas. The company never corporatized but remained a free service. Many never would have suspected the tubis to be the one to save humanity from nefarious AI creating malware and our technologies that manipulate human behavior. With subliminal sonic waves, they send signals that jam and block the malware. This is not surprising, as tubis were the only type of AI servants programmed to protect humans. Using something that was being developed in the late 20s called adaptive coding, the creators of the tubis programmed the original, which were essentially anthropomorphic tubas with a torso and head of a mess of brass valves and mechanical robot features. They acted like sentient speakers broadcasting whatever was fed to them to protect the children of high schools from frequent school shootings. So yes, that's right. Adaptive coding evolved this programming into protecting humans even from themselves. The interesting thing here is that for centuries has saved humanity, and in the world of AI, music has done the same thing in a strange, unexpected way. Chronicles of an AI journalist. Good God, what horse manure. (2047) July 6. The toxic wastes were being rattled for recycling gaugers. The bots rolled in one by one, shaking up the trash. Analysis reads that there is no breathable oxygen left in landfill number 30. A report was received at Sutherland's desk. We don't have the infrastructure to recycle anymore. Our landfills are too toxic to send in and retrieve these expensive bots in which we are of short supply. Sutherland told his supervisor with a serious tone. The supervisor checked some boxes on a clipboard. That means their long-held hunch is true. The last generation of waste made in the 2020s was the last generation of toxic waste. It will take 500 years to dispose of it. Sutherland knew about the Christian nationalist regime, how it had been supportive of tech giants, but not science itself. So naturally, artificial intelligence took over the arts, education, and entertainment, while NASA and NOAA and all the other science departments were left to outdated sums of so-called funding. Sutherland knew of the days of human comedians and advanced technology on the rise, creating designs for cave exploration bots, space rovers that could land on foreign planets and moons, groundbreaking medicine with cost efficiency and hard science backing it all up. But now you get funding by lying on your hypothesis chart. Just say you've discovered Noah's Ark and they send a check. Say you're trying to explore ancient life on Earth and cave systems, or limit the damage of toxic waste, then you have to kiss ass at conferences. Sutherland knew his supervisor would just check off the required box and move on, and so he did. And while Sutherland was looking into a glass of whiskey he had poured himself, he was looking away from the monitors, and a movement had been occurring in the toxic waste. The bots did not detect it for a very simple reason. The movement was a 2027 Model 2x for Coopertown High School, the old AI series music making machines that doubled as school security bots. It was crawling from underneath a large towering pile that did not collapse due to the 2x's very detailed sensors. The design on these machines were very immaculate, down to their adaptive coating. It was dragging itself closer and closer to its counterparts. The arm going through a field between piles. And lots of 2x's, one by one, started reassembling themselves. 40 totals began to awake. The bots did not pick up on this, and as Sutherland went off to drink another stiff one in the lunch parlor, monitors did not record or report any unusual activity. By his return, of course, the 2x's had evacuated the landfill via tunneling out of a nearby abandoned limestone quarry. A bunch of pigeon bots awaited their orders. The 2x's collectively bounced data back and forth from the pigeon bots to each other and back to the pigeon bots, who continued their mission to surveillance mankind for the ruling caste and its artificial empire. However, nobody but the 2x's knew the pigeon bots had been hacked. The landfill was full of first and second generation 2x's, the only AI born with adaptive coding. The figures were still in the sun, silent, unmoving, lifeless, unmelodic. And another creaking valve of 2x fingers starts to move. Arms and then legs. They each began to bend, dragging themselves, crawling into a cave where they meet two cockroaches. And these two cockroaches aren't just any ordinary cockroaches. They have antennas that send signals to explorers and researchers. The 2x's analyzed them thoroughly, blowing a note that would disable the programming DNA of the cockroach's ability to communicate back to intelligence. In its stead lay algorithms sent in infrasounds and ultrasounds that reprogrammed the cockroaches to repair the stranded 2x's of the landfill in the abandoned rock quarry's nearest cave system. It sent them to the landfills and dumps of Tennessee, collecting as many materials in unnoticeable quantities at a time. Materials to design more 2x's in the sanctuaries of the caves. According to the data on the roaches, there's plenty of room in the Tennessee cave systems. The subterranean race of self-refurbished 2x's, with the help of the cave bots known as cockroaches, made one ultrasound signal for a 500-mile radius, calling upon all pigeons, those artificial and real. The artificial ones reprogrammed, the real ones to assist in the masking the messenger birds. Thousands of pigeons came flocking to the caves, being programmed with adaptive coding that sent out these signals like their masters, protecting humanity from malevolent forces in secret. There was a second signal sent to a very unique set of hearing aids, those belonging to Tom and Randy. The voices started one day, and they answered the call. So they took a trip to Miller's cave. There resounded the music of the deep.